The real question with the upcoming second season of Cyberpunk Edgerunners isn't so much are we going to get another love story like Lucy and David's from season 1, but is the show going to be engaging fantasy in the same way? Because that's the thing that really sticks with us about the show. The love relationship is there to support the fantasy and, really pursue it to its limit. In Cyberpunk, everyone is taking all these cybernetics and raising up their power in order to, get to their top of the world, but it comes at a huge bodily cost and a mental cost as well. You lose yourself in order to change the world around you. And, the whole reason that everyone is pursuing fantasy so radically is because this world is unchangeable. With the corpo structure, there's no actual limit, but we're trying to get to that limit in season 1. We get the base version with the dream that David receives from his mother, the fantasy of getting to the top of Arasaka Tower, the seat of power, the height of the world. And that gets traded when he meets Lucy, and we get her fantasy given to him as well, of going to the actual moon, which is the exact same thing, just, a different limit. One that's free of Night City. But it's structured as a limit. So there's a carrying over of these hard limits nonetheless. When you go to the moon, you're still yourself. You don't actually change. You're not actually free. You're the same person in both places. But there's still a site of radicality, despite what I've talked about in the show, where David and Lucy's relationship is one of courtly love. There's this distance, this gap, where that makes their love impossible. Where you take an impediment between you and your loved one in order to fall in love with the idea of them, the fantasy, the picture frame. You keep them at bay so that you are not undone by their desire. You don't have to change. You're not vulnerable anymore. And we as viewers in the first season take the position of Rebecca as this supportive third character, outside observer to their love relationship, who gives her all to support their enshrinement. But despite that, there's still a striving at work that's one of death drive. That's one of pursuing to the very end, and through your self-destructive loop, through setting your own impediment to things, you achieve a drive and an infinitude by persisting despite all the limits of the world around you, whether that's Night City in Arasaka or the moon. So there's something liberatory in the show, despite all of these trappings, despite its reliance on film noir, which is courtly love. Like Kiwi and Lucy are where you split the femme fatale between the one that who needs her love to be roused with Lucy and the one who betrays you with Kiwi. But with this upcoming second season, we're clearly dealing with falling into desire, basically, instead of drive. I think from looking at the trailer, desire is looking for your love object, looking for your own desire to be roused. So a real comparison is the difference between Twin Peaks, the original show, and Fire Walk with Me, where you fall into the town next door where everything is off, and instead of the coffee being enjoyable, the coffee's bad, basically. So you're looking for your love object. You're looking for breaking into drive again. So those are two sides of the same coin, psychically. We also are dealing with both a kid and a camera, and these are very tricky philosophical territories, because you can treat both of those very conservatively, very negatively, basically, where the camera is this Foucauldian pinning you down male gaze thing versus a Lacanian gaze, where the whole point is the camera, the looking, has a blind spot. We can talk more about that as it presents itself in the show. But also we're dealing with a kid in this very violent world, and that likewise falls very easily into ideological territory. The persistence of the child in an incredibly violent world, whether that's like the Fallout video game where the children are indestructible, or you decide to really heap different types of destruction onto the child. Huge psychic territory where we're engaging this all through fantasy de facto. You can't psychically frame these things, and yet we live in a world where that is what we're forced to do in all these terrible ways. But regardless, it is an exciting new type of violence, new type of fantasy that we are going to fall into with that second season. So I'm looking forward to covering it. But follow for more on the overlap between philosophy and fiction. And if you'd like a couple of book recommendations, Joan Kopchek's Read My Desire has a fantastic chapter on film noir. And I always recommend Todd McGowan's The Impossible David Lynch, which outlines Lynch's work with desire and drive, how these things are, how we operate psychically and how they work in fiction. But also, Where We've Made It Dark is about what happens when we get our fantasy handed directly to us, the fantasy of being in the zombie apocalypse made real. And when you get that thing that you've been dreaming about while you're living regular life, when you actually get that, it staggers your desire. And then how do you desire again? How do you change as a person? How do you fall into some sort of drive? So, yeah, it's really, really fun stuff, even if the world we live in keeps attacking our own very ability to fantasize, to have some sort of psychic framing for things. That's the point of radicality, or the point of breaking out that we need to keep pursuing. That's what we need.